Pure white fills your eyes, empty, silent, almost blinding. Then, out of the nothing, a single black bell appears, its shape sharp, heavy, and strange, covered in a thick crust of ice. Frost climbs its sides, catching the light in 100 tiny cracks. The cold hums in your bones, so real you almost taste it. The world holds its breath. A sound echoes out. Not a real bell, not a normal one. This is the hollow ring of ice breaking, deep, slow, lonely. It rolls across the empty white, searching for something to hold on to. No walls around it, no clapper inside. Just a single bell, frozen stiff, calling out at midnight. On the screen, words drift into focus. No clapper, no walls. Only the Iceveil bell tolls at midnight. But the strangest part, no one has ever seen the bell move. No ropes hang from its throat. No wind blows strong enough to shake it. And yet, when midnight comes, everyone in the valley hears that sound. The toll that feels like ice in your chest. The echo that drags out old memories. Makes you shiver from the inside out. They say each toll steals a memory. Ask the old hunters, the children, the mothers who never sleep. Every night the bell rings. Someone forgets something precious. A name, a face, the way home. You wake up colder, emptier, staring out at a world that feels just a bit more hollow than before. But the 7 sisters, they never rang at once. Who are they? Why do they walk these frozen fields always together, never speaking, their eyes dull with secrets no one can name? Some say they're cursed, bound to the ice forever. Others say they're the only ones who remember what the bell truly wants. No one knows what power calls from the ice. No one dares to find out. Would you listen for the toll, or would you hide from the memory it takes? If this mystery chills you, tell us what you'd do if you heard the bells echo at midnight, and subscribe now, before you forget why you came. January 1913. The wind screams down Aurora Ridge, shaking the trees until ice rattles from the branches. Snow drifts high on the road, hiding stones, swallowing every old footprint. In this wilderness, even the air seems to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. A battered stagecoach lurches around the final bend, its wheels biting through snow, horses steaming with sweat and fear. The only light is a faint flicker from a lantern swinging at the driver's elbow, barely enough to show the path ahead. Overhead, the northern lights ripple in the sky, green and purple, twisting and shifting like something alive, painting shadows over the mountain pass. When the coach stops, the sound echoes, sharp, brittle, almost lost in the wind. The door creaks open, and 7 women step down one by one. Each is dressed in black from head to toe, faces hidden beneath heavy veils crusted with frost. Their boots crunch in the fresh snow, leaving 7 perfect prints behind, a single file line that leads nowhere. None of them speak, not to the driver, not to the horses, not to each other. They move with a purpose, but without a word, as if they're following some command only they can hear. Each carries nothing, no bags, no books, not even a coat against the biting cold. Only a single small wooden cross dangling from the hand of the eldest, swinging back and forth as she walks. Locals gather at the edge of the ridge, watching from behind curtains or lantern light. No one dares come close. Some make the sign of the cross, others whisper to their children, telling them to stay far from the newcomers. The mountain hasn't seen strangers in years, especially not women dressed like widows, faces hidden, silence thicker than the snow itself. Rumors start before the stagecoach even rolls away. Some say the nuns came from nowhere. No one remembers seeing them on the trail. No one heard their voices at the last town down the mountain. Others claim they saw a black carriage by the frozen sea, far below Aurora Ridge, the wheels vanishing into fog, the driver's eyes shining in the dark. No one sees the nuns speak, not even to each other. When someone dares to ask who they are, the eldest lifts her hand, showing the cross, and shakes her head, slow and final. Not here, not now. Some of the old men in the village say they've seen faces like this before, long ago during the winter famine, when people locked their doors at night and prayed the storm would pass. They talk about ghost stories, women who walk in silence, never aging, never dying, always searching for something lost in the snow. But this is no ghost story. These women are real. Their breath steams in the freezing air, their boots leave marks on the ground, their presence sends shivers through the bravest heart. When the stagecoach leaves, it's as if it was never there at all. The tracks fill with blowing snow, the light fades, the village is left in a hush that feels almost holy, almost cursed. No one sees where the sisters go. Some say they climbed higher toward the old church by the edge of the frozen lake. Others say they vanished between the pines, their black veils blending with the shadows, their voices swallowed by the wind. Only one thing is certain: Aurora Ridge will never be the same. Who are these sisters? Why did they come, alone and empty-handed, to a place so cold and forgotten? The answers, if there are any, are locked behind 7 veils, buried deep in silence, waiting for the ice to crack. If you were standing in the snow that night, would you watch them go or call out for the truth? If this arrival chills you, share what you'd do on Aurora Ridge and subscribe before the story slips away with the next storm. Inside the convent, the air is colder than outside. The walls are thick stone, heavy with frost, holding out the world and locking in the silence. The great hall stretches wide and empty, every sound swallowed up before it can reach the far corners. This is not a place for laughter or singing. Even footsteps are muffled, as if the stones themselves don't want to remember who walks here. Dozens of candles burn in neat rows along the walls, flames tall and steady, unmoving. There is no draft in this room. The windows are shuttered tight, thick glass rimmed with ice, keeping the cold in as much as out. The only movement is the slow flicker of light across the floor, dancing patterns in the frost that creeps up every pillar. At the front stands a single massive altar carved from gray rock, its edges worn smooth by years of silent rituals. Frost patterns twine over its sides, spirals and lines that look almost like writing or the tracks of something frozen crawling up from beneath. The sisters never touch these marks. They polish the altar, dust the floor, but the frost is always there in the morning, growing back thicker, harder, every time. Tonight, the sisters move through the hall in silence. 7 black shapes gliding over the stone, their veils still heavy with ice. They pause before each candle, their hands trembling only a little as they strike a match and bring the flame to life. 1, 2, 3. 44 candles in all. No one speaks, no prayers, no hymns, not even a whisper. Each flame is lit as if by memory, as if the sisters have done this 100 times before and will do it 100 times again. Their faces never turn to each other. Their eyes stay low, fixed on the flames or the shadows that cluster in the corners. Somewhere, the wind howls around the roof, the old timbers creak, snow slides off the shingles, but inside the hall, the silence holds. The candles burn straight and true, their flames perfectly still, not a single wick flickering as if the air itself is afraid to breathe. 44 candles for 44 echoes. That's what the wind whispered the night before. The sisters counted each gust as they sat by the windows, feeling the cold crawl up their backs. Each echo a name, maybe, or a warning, or something they have promised to remember. The townspeople talk about the Hall of Candles, though few have ever seen it. They say each flame is a soul waiting to be found, a voice lost to the snow, or a prayer that no one dares speak out loud. They say the sisters light the candles for the living and the dead, for every stranger who crosses the ridge and never returns. But inside the hall, the truth is stranger. No prayers are spoken. The sisters bow their heads, not in devotion but in fear, as if the act of lighting the candles is enough, and anything more might break whatever thin line keeps the darkness at bay. Some say if you watch long enough, the flames begin to move on their own. that the light bends and twists, spelling out messages in the frost, calling up faces in the melting wax. Some of the orphans, those who sweep the pews and polish the altar, say they've seen shadows pass behind the flames, figures that move too quickly, faces that linger in the glass, lips that move in prayer even when no one is near. No one dares ask who the candles are for. No one counts aloud. The number is always 44. Never more, never less. The silence in the hall is thick, like another layer of stone. It presses against your skin, settles on your tongue, makes your ears ring until you almost wish for a scream, a song, anything to shatter it. But the sisters finish their ritual and step back and wait. Nothing happens. Or maybe everything does. The candles burn lower. Wax runs in thin white rivers down the stands, pooling at the altar's edge. The frost on the stone seems to thicken. The air grows colder. Still, the flames never flicker, never die. The sisters slip away, their footsteps barely there. The hall is left in silence, the 44 flames burning, watching, waiting for a voice that never comes. Would you light a candle in a place like this? Would you dare speak a prayer, or would you let the silence answer for you? If this hall of silent candles left you uneasy, let us know what you'd wish for in the dark, and subscribe so you don't miss the next echo from Aurora Ridge. The prayer room at the back of the convent is colder than any place on Aurora Ridge. Walls close and narrow, the ceiling low, the windows so rimmed with ice they almost seem alive. Shadows crowd together here, pressed tight by years of secrets. The only warmth comes from a single stub of candle burning in the corner, just enough light to make the frost on the walls glisten like 1,000 tiny eyes. In the center of the table sits a ledger, thick and heavy, its cover made from the rib of a whale that washed up dead on the frozen coast long before the sisters arrived. The bone is cracked and worn smooth at the edges, marked with old salt scars. The lock is rusted, but the book is always open. This is Sister Margaret's task. Every night after the others have gone to their rooms, she sits at this table, her hands wrapped in wool, her breath misting above the pages. She keeps the ledger balanced on her lap, careful not to let the frost creep too far over the words. She lights the last candle, dips her pen, and begins to write. Slow, perfect letters, no hesitation, no mistakes. Jan 1, candle lit. Echo heard, no word returned. Jan 2, candle lit. Echo heard, no worse. D returned. Jan 3, candle lit. Echo heard, no word returned. Day after day, the same ritual. Candle, echo, silence. Margaret's script never wavers. The ink stays dark and clear even as the room grows colder, even as the frost thickens on the pages. Sometimes she has to scrape it off with her fingernail, careful not to tear the bone-thin paper underneath. She never changes the routine, never questions why the echoes come or why they never bring answers. Outside, the wind howls and the windows tremble, but Margaret stays focused. She listens for the echo, feels it in her bones, a sound softer than breath, as if the ridge itself is sighing, waiting for a reply that never comes. 43 nights pass, 43 entries in the ledger, each one exact, unbroken, a chain of silence and routine. Sometimes she glances at the other candles, each burned lower than the last. Sometimes she wonders what it would feel like to hear a word come back, to know that someone, something, is listening. On the 44th night, Margaret lights the candle and waits. The echo is slower this time, deeper, as if coming from beneath the ice. She holds her pen, ready to write, but when the echo dies away, she finds her mind is empty. Her hand trembles. For the first time, she can't remember what to write. She looks at the page. Frost curls along the edge, creeping closer to the blank lines. The candle burns lower, the wax dripping fast. She leans in, waiting, begging the silence to give her just one word. But there's nothing. The room is too cold. The air is too thin. The silence grows thick, pressing down on her chest until she can barely breathe. That night, Margaret leaves the page blank. The next morning she tries to remember what happened, but the memory is gone, stolen away by the ice. The ledger sits open on the table, the blank page shining in the gray light. The other sisters gather at the door, eyes wide, waiting for her to speak, but she has no words. The ritual is broken. After that night, the convent changes. The echoes grow fainter, harder to hear. Some candles refuse to light, their wicks soaked with ice. The frost on the altar grows thicker, swallowing the old patterns. The sisters begin to whisper, to worry, to wonder what was lost in the silence. Margaret still sits at her table every night, pen in hand, hoping for the echo to return. But the blank page in her ledger feels like a hole in the world, a door left open to something cold and patient waiting just outside. Would you keep writing if the silence answered back, or would you leave the page blank, waiting for the ice to speak? If Sister Margaret's ledger gave you chills, tell us what you'd write in the prayer room, and subscribe so you never miss the next secret the ice tries to hide. Out on Aurora Ridge, where the wind never rests and the snow lies heavy all year, there stands a chapel the cold can't quite touch. It's small, nothing but warped planks, a pointed roof, icicles hanging like teeth from the eaves. But step closer and you'll see the strangest thing. No matter how hard the frost bites, the chapel's doorway is always clear. No ice, no drifted snow. Not a single footprint, just a perfect patch of bare wood where the world's cold can't seem to hold on. Villagers have stories, of course. Some claim the ground around the chapel is cursed, that the first builder was buried upright beneath the floorboards, eyes wide, never meant to sleep. Others say the chapel is protected, a holy place where winter itself bows and shivers, never daring to cross the line. But the sisters know better. Every night, as the wind howls and the sky burns with the northern lights, one or two of them slip away from the convent, their veils pulled low, boots silent on the frozen field. They go to the chapel to pray, to remember, or maybe to forget. What they do inside, no one truly knows. But every midnight, no matter who is watching or who is not, a sound drifts out from the wooden walls. It's the sound of a harp, old and dusted with frost, tucked away in the shadow by the altar. No one ever sees anyone touch it. No hands move across its strings. Yet at the stroke of midnight, as the wind stills and the stars hold their breath, the harp shivers and sings a single sad note. Just one. It echoes through the chapel, out into the snow, curling around the doorframe, rolling down the ice field like a sigh. Then silence. The kind of silence that seems to press against your bones, making you wonder if you only dreamed the music at all. Some say it's a spirit, a lost girl, a former sister, someone who froze on the mountain and lingers still, her sorrow too heavy to rest. Some believe it's the voice of the mountain itself, remembering old prayers, warning away any who might dare break the chapel's rules. When the sun rises, frost covers everything. The icicles hang lower. The roof glitters, edged with silver and blue. But that doorway, always dry, always clear, seems to glow a little, as if the music never quite left. Inside, the harp strings are slick with ice, but they never snap. Wax from old candles puddles on the floor, never melting, never quite hardening. The pews are empty, but the air feels heavy, like the weight of a congregation holding its breath. The sisters never speak of what happens there. When they return to the convent, their eyes are hollow, their hands colder than before. Sometimes, just before dawn, one of them will hum a tune so soft you almost miss it, a tune that sounds just like that single harp note, stretched out and lonely. Even the bravest villagers keep their distance. They remember the night the teacher's son dared his friends to sleep inside. They say he woke before the sun, hair turned white as snow, unable to speak, his eyes filled with a sorrow he carried to his grave. After that, no one tried again. Why won't the chapel freeze? Why does the harp play for no one? What is being remembered or mourned every midnight? Is it a warning, a promise, a secret the mountain keeps for itself. If you ever find yourself on Aurora Ridge, would you step through that open doorway? Would you listen for the harp, or turn away and let the wind carry its song to someone else? If the chapel that won't freeze gives you chills, tell us what you think haunts its midnight silence, and subscribe to follow the next echo in the snow. The snow lies deep and silent behind the convent, untouched but for a strange pattern stamped into its surface. 44 small wooden crosses stand in careful rows, their shadows long and blue in the afternoon light. Each one is simple, carved by hand, the wood cracked by cold, each arm wrapped with a thin strip of black cloth. 7 sisters kneel before the crosses. Their veils hide their faces, but you can see how their breath clouds the air. They bow low, holding silence so sharp it could cut. No prayers rise from their lips. Only the wind moves, swirling flakes between the crosses, rattling the cloth strips, making them dance like the hands of ghosts. They call these the novices, souls bound to ice. No one in the village knows their names, no birth records, no family stories, no graves marked in the old churchyard. The sisters never speak of where the novices came from or how they arrived on Aurora Ridge. Some say they wandered out of the forest one by one, barefoot and empty-eyed, drawn by the tolling of the Iceveil. Others whisper that the snow itself gave birth to them, shaping lost children from the storm. 44 crosses for 44 echoes. The number never changes. Each year on the coldest night, the sisters come out to lay fresh cloth on the arms of the crosses. They move slowly, hands stiff, voices locked away. Sometimes when the wind dies and the air grows still, it almost seems like the ground itself is listening, waiting for someone to say the novices' names out loud. But no one does. The children in the village dare each other to step among the crosses after dark. Most refuse, but the bravest go, teeth chattering, hearts pounding. They report strange feelings, a sudden headache, a rush of sadness, the urge to cry for someone they never knew. One girl swore she heard footsteps behind her, soft as falling snow. Another boy claimed to see faces in the frost, eyes pleading for warmth. No one stays long. In spring, when the snow melts a little, the crosses never shift. Their shadows always fall the same way, no matter how the sun moves. The ground beneath them stays frozen, hard as stone, while everywhere else, tiny flowers begin to push through the thawing soil. The villagers say the crosses hold the lost voices of the ridge. Every time the ice bell tolls, it claims another echo, traps another soul in silence. Maybe these novices were meant to take holy vows, but lost their way. Maybe they were forgotten, erased, made nameless, so the mountain would keep them forever. For the sisters, this ritual is more than memory. It's penance. They bow deeper each year, staying longer in the snow, as if begging forgiveness from the 44 shadows lined before them. Some nights you can see tears freeze on their cheeks, or see their hands shake as they tie the cloth around each cross. Would you dare to say a name here if you knew it? Would you bring a candle, a flower, a whispered prayer, or would you pass by, eyes averted, pretending you heard nothing at all? Hat power lies in 44 nameless echoes, and what happens when the bell tolls for the last time. If the frozen novices haunt your dreams, leave your theory below and subscribe before the next name is lost to ice. Behind the convent, hidden by high stone walls and iron gates, there's a garden no one ever expected to survive the winter. But Sister Helena made it bloom. Even when the snow fell thick as a blanket, even when the wind clawed at the stones, the flowers she planted never died. Their petals shone with frost, colors brighter than any paint, shapes so perfect they looked carved by a careful hand. Each bloom grew in a pattern, lined up along invisible lines, a web of triangles and stars, circles and sharp diamonds, all pointing toward the center of the courtyard. Even the oldest villagers could not explain it. No seeds ever blew in on the wind, no birds landed on the gates. Every petal seemed to glow from within, sparkling under the ice as if the garden was lit by some secret fire. People whispered that Sister Helena could talk to the earth, that she knew names for things no one else could see. She walked the garden each morning, never slipping, her veil trailing across the hard snow, leaving a path that faded before anyone else could follow. Children were drawn to the garden. They pressed their faces to the iron bars, fingers white against the cold metal, eyes wide at the burst of color. Sister Helena would sometimes open the gate and call them in, her voice soft, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. The children would go, one by one, eager for warmth, for laughter, for the promise of a secret world beneath the frost. But the truth waited in silence. Inside, the garden was colder than it seemed. The air sparkled. Every breath hung bright for a second before vanishing. The flowers hummed with a music only children seemed to hear. They'd skip along the paths, touch the icy petals, kneel beside the old stone fountain at the garden's heart. The water there was frozen solid, the surface etched with more geometric patterns, shapes that shifted every day, never melting, never breaking. The sisters warned the children not to wander too far. The villagers said to keep away after dark. But sometimes the garden gate would be found open in the morning, footprints leading in, none ever leading out. No one could explain where the children went. Their laughter would echo off the walls for a time, high and wild, then suddenly hush, like a candle snuffed out. If anyone looked in, all they'd see were the flowers, still blooming, untouched by wind or sun or sorrow. Some of the mothers tried to blame the snow, or the mountain, or their own memories. But they would come to the garden gate day after day, eyes red, lips pressed tight, listening for a voice that never answered back. Sometimes, in the right light, it seemed the petals held a glint of something new, a button, a ribbon, a single golden curl of hair. Helena walked the garden alone now. She never locked the gate, never called out. Sometimes, when the northern lights flickered, people saw her kneeling beside the fountain, whispering to the ice, her hands full of frost-tipped blooms. Why did the flowers never die? Why did the children's laughter linger in the air, sweet and sad, trapped between the petals? Was the garden a gift, a curse, or something stranger? A trap waiting for anyone too hopeful, too curious, too willing to believe in beauty beneath the snow. Would you cross that threshold knowing what's been lost, hoping you'd be to make it back? Would you pick a single flower or run before the gate swings closed behind you? If Sister Helena's crystal garden caught you in its spell, tell us what you think waits among the petals and subscribe before the next laughter freezes forever. Out beyond the garden, across the frozen field, the bell tower stands alone. Stone blocks stacked higher than any tree, chipped by wind, dusted with ice, blackened at the edges by time. It rises out of the earth like something the mountain tried to bury, but couldn't. No one remembers who built it. No one remembers a time when it wasn't there. Every villager, every sister, every wandering stranger knows its shape. The empty arch at the top, wide enough for the moon to shine through. No rope, no bell, just a hollow place that seems hungry for something lost. Some nights the wind screams around the tower, making old stones moan, but the field stays empty. You might stand there for hours and hear nothing but your own breath fogging the air, freezing on your lips. But then, when the clock slips past midnight, a strange hush falls. Cold seeps into your bones, so deep it feels like your heart might stop. You look at your watch. 1:10. 1 minute left. Everyone in the village feels it. Lights flicker in windows. Dogs curl tighter, refusing to bark. Even the horses refuse to lift their heads. At exactly 1:11 a.m. it happens. A single toll cracks through the dark, sharp and low, the sound of iron splitting ice. The ground trembles. Your ears ring. The echo rolls out over the field, across the convent, all the way to the edge of the frozen sea. It doesn't matter where you are. You feel it in your teeth, your ribs, your dreams. But when you look up, nothing moves in the tower. The arch remains empty. No bell, no rope, just a slice of moonlight and a shiver that won't fade. The echo lingers longer than it should, as if the air itself is trying to swallow it whole. Every time the bell tolls, everyone listens, counting, hoping, dreading. For when the echo finally dies away, something else always disappears. Sometimes it's a sister, missing from morning prayers, her bed made, her veil left behind. Sometimes it's a novice, their name whispered but never spoken again. Sometimes it's a villager, an old man who never woke, a girl who stepped out to feed the chickens and never returned. No one sees them go. No footprints, no sound, no warning, just empty space where a soul once stood, a silence that grows heavier with each toll. Some try to explain it. They say the cold gets in your head, makes you dream things that aren't real. Others say the tower is cursed, built atop something ancient and hungry. The sisters tell stories quiet as prayers, about deals struck long ago, about the price of survival on the ridge. But the toll never lies. One note, one echo, one soul gone. Children count the nights, shivering in their beds, hands pressed tight over their ears, hoping the sound won't find them. Old women burn candles and scratch crosses into their windows. The bravest men avoid the tower at all costs, even in daylight, fearing what shadows may linger in the stone. A few, desperate or bold, have climbed the tower, looking for answers. They find nothing, just stone, just emptiness, just a wind that cuts deeper the higher you climb. No sign of a bell, not even a place for a rope to hang. And yet, every night, the toll comes, always at 1:11. Some say the tower marks the edge of another world, a place where the living and the lost trade places, echo for echo. Some say the sisters know more than they'll ever share, their silence a shield against the bell's hunger. Would you dare stand beneath the arch at midnight, waiting for the toll? Would you rise, like being the next to vanish, just to glimpse what lies beyond the echo? Or would you hide inside, counting each toll, praying your name won't be the one left unspoken in the morning? If the vanishing bell tower sent a chill through you, tell us who you think the next echo will claim, and subscribe before the clock strikes 1:11 again. Night falls heavy on Aurora Ridge, shadows thickening around the chapel, the convent, the field of crosses. The world feels emptied out, as if everything that could move has stilled, and only the cold is left. Tonight, the bell tower's echo is fresh in every ear, pulsing through wood and bone. No one dares leave their bed, except for one. Father Lucien was not like the others. He'd come north from the city, traveling by train and sled and foot, boots battered, collar buttoned tight. His breath steamed in the night air, his eyes sharp and sad. They say he came with questions about the missing novices, the vanishing sisters, the toll that rings from an empty bell tower. His voice was gentle, his faith deep, but he didn't believe in ghosts, not until Aurora Ridge. On his first morning, he walked the perimeter, blessing the fields, tracing the sign of the cross in frost. He met the villagers, listened to their fears, took confession from trembling lips. But every story returned to the convent. 7 silent sisters, the 44 crosses, the way laughter seemed to freeze in the garden and never thaw. Finally, he asked to speak with the sisters. They led him inside, down echoing halls where the candles never flickered, into the oldest part of the building, the chapel, its doors rimmed with frost, its pews empty and cold. At the far end, behind a cracked wooden screen, sat the confessional. He entered alone. The booth was cold as a tomb. Frost laced the wood, painting white spiderwebs across the walls. A single candle burned, throwing long, shivering shadows. On the kneeler lay a priest's hat, carefully placed as if someone meant to return for it. Lucien knelt, bowing his head, whispering a prayer for strength. He waited for a voice to answer from the other side. None came. He spoke anyway, asking about the novices, the garden, the bell tower, the ledger's blank page. His words clouded the air, drifting in the dark, fading to nothing. And then, silence. No answer, No sound, just a sudden crushing cold, pressing in from all sides. Outside, the sisters waited. Some said they heard a voice rise inside the chapel, so quiet it was almost not there at all. Others swore the confessional glowed as if frost on the wood caught moonlight and burned blue. When they finally opened the booth, Father Lucien was gone. Nothing left but his hat on the kneeler, a dusting of snow, and on the glass, words written in frost, crisp and clear as if traced by a ghostly hand. They keep the echoes, and I am one. His final confession, a truth colder than death, not just lost, not just missing, but claimed, held, turned into something less than memory and more than fear. The words stayed on the glass for days, refusing to melt even when candles flickered close. Children pressed their hands to the frost, hoping to feel a heartbeat. The sisters crossed themselves, lips moving in silent prayer. No one spoke of what they saw, not to each other, not to the villagers, not to anyone who might ask. After that night, the confessional was never used again, its door sealed tight, a cross nailed to the wood. No one ever touched Father Lucien's hat. Some said they saw footprints in the snow leading from the chapel to the bell tower, but they faded before anyone could follow. The villagers remembered the priest as a good man, brave, unafraid of the truth. But the sisters remembered something else, the way the echoes changed after Lucien vanished. Some nights the toll of the bell sounded like a whisper. Some nights the air inside the chapel pressed colder, tighter, as if something new had joined the silence. Now, every time the echo rolls across the ridge, people wonder, how many are left? How many souls claimed by the bell, the snow, the chapel, the sister's secret? Would you kneel in that confessional, hoping for answers? Would you risk becoming another echo trapped forever between wood and ice? Or would you turn away, keeping your voice and your soul safe, knowing some confessions should never be spoken aloud? If Father Lucien's last words haunt you, share your thoughts below and subscribe before the next confession freezes in the glass. Hidden deep in the heart of the convent, behind a wall of stone and a locked iron grate, lies an artifact few have seen and even fewer dare to touch. It's not paper, not a book, not even something you could burn or tear apart. This manifesto is a secret etched in bone, an ancient plate carved from the rib of a whale dragged from the ice, heavier than a man's arm, slick with oil, cold as the grave. Every inch of it is carved with strange lines, runes that twist and curl in the flicker of candlelight. Not Latin, not English, something older, a language known only to the 7 sisters. And on that bone, in red that never fades, 7 dots march down one side, each dot for a name, each name for a vow. This is the Iceveil Manifesto. Some say the sisters wrote it their first night on Aurora Ridge, kneeling in a circle, knives bright, the whalebone balanced across their knees. They pressed their fingers to the blood-warm bone, swore to keep the ridge and the convent safe, no matter the cost. Their vow became laitante, written, not spoken, carved so deep the bone could never forget. The words are simple but chilling. We bind each echo to our vow. No soul escapes the cold. What kind of person would swear such a thing? What does it mean to bind echoes? To make sure no voice, no memory, no lost child ever leaves the snow? The sisters must have believed the danger was greater than the price. Maybe they thought it was the only way to keep the darkness out, to stop whatever haunted the mountain from breaking free. But the price is clear. Every novice, every visitor, every wandering priest who crosses the threshold, every echo taken by the bell, bound, held tight, never allowed to escape. Their laughter freezes, their prayers die in the frost, their footsteps fade until only the sisters remember. 7 red dots for 7 sisters, each one carved after a night of silence, after the bell tolled, after another soul vanished from the ridge. Over the years, the plate filled with scratches and chips, but the dots remain, as bright as fresh blood. Some whisper that if you press your ear to the bone, you can hear the voices trapped inside. 44 echoes whispering, crying, sometimes singing lullabies from their old lives. But most never try. The risk is too great. If you listen too long, they say, your own voice might slip away, pulled into the bone, leaving your body cold and quiet. Just another secret in the sisters' vault. Why did they do it? Did they think they were saving the world? Did they love the ridge enough to curse themselves? Or were they afraid of what might happen if even one echo escaped into the night? The manifesto sits in its vault, watched by candlelight, surrounded by prayers no one dares to finish. The sisters still visit, touching the bone, tracing the runes, counting the dots. Sometimes, when the bell tolls, they gather in the dark, heads bowed, voices low, repeating the vow they wrote in blood and bone. We bind each echo to our vow. No soul escapes the coal. Would you dare to break the vow? Would you let the echoes go, or would you carve your own name on the plate to keep the secret alive? If the Iceveil manifesto chills you, tell us what pact you'd make on the ridge, and subscribe before your echo becomes the next to freeze in the bone. In a wing of the convent rarely visited, behind doors warped by cold and sealed tight with iron, there is a gallery that has haunted Aurora Ridge for generations. The air is always colder here, the shadows heavier, the silence thick enough to smother even the bravest whisper. Inside, 7 oil portraits hang in a perfect line across the wall, each one dusted with frost, each frame carved by a trembling hand. At first glance, the faces in the paintings are pure, almost angelic. Women in black habits, skin white as fresh snow, lips pressed thin and closed. But it's the eyes that steal your breath. Each set of eyes stares out with a look too steady, too deep. And from the corners a trickle of red runs down, staining the cheeks, dripping onto painted cloth, a single, silent line of blood that never seems to dry. The sisters painted themselves, or so the story goes. They gathered in the frozen light of late winter, mixing their own paints, their own brushes, their own secrets. For days the chapel filled with the scent of oil and canvas and something sharper, a copper tang no one could name. They worked in silence, no laughter, no prayer. Only the slow, steady scrape of bristle on linen, the hush of breath caught in concentration. But when the portraits dried, something was wrong. Each face looked the same nose, same mouth, same pale brow, but the eyes refused to match. Some sisters wept when they saw their own reflection, but none dared repaint, as if the canvas itself had made the choice. As time passed, the paint began to flake. Tiny chips drifted down onto the floor, settling in the cracks of old wood. One spring, a novice cleaning the gallery found something caught in the paint, coarse, dark hair woven into the oil, curled tight, impossible to remove. She pulled at it and felt a shiver run through the whole room, as if the gallery itself breathed in. Others noticed, too. Late at night, footsteps echoed on the stone, and the sisters swore they heard the portraits sigh, their bloody eyes glistening in the moonlight. Visitors from the village claimed to see the tears move, sliding slow as syrup down the canvas, pooling on the floor, never leaving a stain. Then came the fire. No one knows how it started. Some say lightning struck the roof, others blame a candle left burning too long. The flames swept through the gallery, hissing and snapping, licking at the frames, turning canvas to ash. The sisters tried to save the paintings, but the heat was too great, the smoke too thick. When the fire finally died, nothing remained but charred walls, broken glass, and 7 dark marks where the portraits once hung. But the strangest thing, on the floor, in a perfect line, 7 red stains glistened in the light of dawn. Not paint, not blood, something in between. The tears from the portraits, left behind as if the fire could not touch them. After that, no one spoke of the gallery. The room was locked, the story buried under layers of frost and fear. But in the years that followed, strange things happened. Candles would flicker out for no reason. Walls would drip with cold water, stained faintly pink. Children wandering too close heard their names whispered, not by any voice they knew, but by the sound of a brush moving over canvas. Some believe the sisters tried to paint away their sins, to show themselves pure as snow, but the eyes betrayed them, spilling they their secrets in red, marking the gallery with a sorrow no fire could erase. Would you step into that room, knowing what waited behind the portrait's gaze? Would you peel away the paint, searching for truth beneath the surface? Or would you turn away, leaving the tears to dry in the dark? If the snow-white portraits haunt your thoughts, share what you think hides behind their eyes, and subscribe before the gallery's last secret is lost to flame. Out on the edge of the world, where the snow meets the sky and the cold can split stone, the land holds a secret few have seen. When night falls and the aurora dances overhead, ribbons of green, blue, violet curling and twisting in the dark, a stranger who wanders the right path might find something buried in the white, a spiral laid in bones. Whale bones, thick and yellowed, ancient as the ridge itself, each rib planted upright, standing in snow like the bones of a giant creature dreaming beneath the ice. They curve one after another in a perfect spiral that mirrors the lights above. No two bones are the same, but each one is set with purpose, as if guided by a hand that knows the language of stars. No one in the village remembers the bones arriving. Some say the sisters carried them one by one from the frozen shore, singing under their breath, faces hidden in their hoods. Others believe the bones have always been here, left behind by something older, something that watched the ridge before any human name was spoken. When you step into the spiral, the world grows quiet. The wind stops at the first turn. Your breath hangs in the air, waiting. It's colder inside the spiral, even though no snow falls, even though the sky above is alive with fire. Your footsteps echo, but only once. The sound is swallowed up by bone and night. At the heart of the spiral, hidden from the eyes of the sky, sits a shrine, not built of gold or stone, but more bone, more frost, more secrets. Candles burned down to nubs, huddle in the snow, their flames barely alive, blue as the aurora. In the center, a shallow bowl carved from the biggest rib, filled with water frozen so clear you can see the stars reflected deep below. They built this spiral to map the sky and their souls. Each bone points to a star. Each turn in the spiral matches the path of the aurora as it spins across the dark. The sisters walked the spiral every solstice, feet bare on the ice, lips moving in silence. They believed the bones could catch the voices of the dead, turn lost prayers into light, echo wishes into the sky. Every year they lit the candles, watched their own faces flicker in the ice, and waited for the final echo to be born. No outsider dared walk the spiral at midnight. Old stories say a boy once tried, brave, foolish, too curious for his own good. He vanished, leaving only a single footprint at the spiral's edge, one candle left burning by the shrine. The villagers keep their distance. Some claim to see shadows circling the spiral on long winter nights. Others hear music, soft and sad, weaving between the bones. A few say the bones whisper, telling the story of every soul claimed by the ridge, every echo the sisters caught and bound. Why a spiral? Why bones? Some say it's the only way to talk to the aurora, to make the sky listen when no one else will. Others think it's a trap, a snare to catch wandering spirits, to keep the cold from swallowing the whole mountain. At the very center, where the shrine sits, the snow never melts. Even in the brightest summer, even under the strongest sun, a patch of cold clings to the ground. The last echo was supposed to be born here, an answer, a prayer, a voice that could end the silence forever. But no one knows if it ever did. Would you walk the spiral, one step for every echo, one turn for every secret? Would you stand at the heart and light a candle, hoping your wish might reach the sky? Or would you leave the bones alone, watching the aurora from a safe distance, afraid of what the spiral might awaken? If the frozen spiral haunts your dreams, share your theory below and subscribe before the next echo is born beneath the lights. The air inside the convent grows colder the deeper you walk, until even your breath feels frozen and heavy in your chest. Down a narrow corridor carved straight through an ancient wall of ice stands a single locked door. Its surface is etched with symbols no one can read, a language that crackles under your fingers, making your skin sting with cold. For years, the door stayed sealed. No one entered, no one left. The sisters would pause here, heads bowed, lips pressed tight, but they never spoke of what waited on the other side. When the police finally came, called by frightened villagers and voices too quiet to name, they forced the door open. Ice splintered, metal hinges screamed. The cold poured out like a ghost, wrapping the officers in a chill that made their teeth ache. They stepped inside, boots crunching on a floor of blue-white frost, and found a room untouched by time. No dust, no footprints, no sign of struggle or escape. Just a single cot, neatly made, blankets still holding the shape of a sleeping body. A veil, black and soft, lay folded on the pillow, crusted at the edge with a crown of ice crystals. The air was so still, so sharp, it hurt to breathe. But what caught every eye was the locket. It sat in the center of the room, heart-shaped and silver, cold as the grave. When they opened it, inside was a photo. A child's face, blurred at the edges, smiling up with eyes too bright for this world. The back of the photo held a number, 27, one of the 44 echoes, one of the lost novices. But the truth waited in silence. Inside, the garden was colder than it seemed. The air sparkled. Every breath hung bright for a second before vanishing. The flowers hummed with a music only children seemed to hear. They'd skip along the paths, touch the icy petals, kneel beside the old stone fountain at the garden's heart. The water there was frozen solid, the surface etched with more geometric patterns, shapes that shifted every day, never melting, never breaking. The sisters warned the children not to wander too far. The villagers said to keep away after dark. But sometimes the garden gate would be found open in the morning, footprints leading in, none ever leading out. No one could explain where the children went. Their laughter would echo off the walls for a time, high and wild, then suddenly hush, like a candle snuffed out. If anyone looked in, all they'd see were the flowers, still blooming, untouched by wind or sun or sorrow. Some of the mothers tried to blame the snow, or the mountain, or their own memories. But they would come to the garden gate day after day, eyes red, lips pressed tight, listening for a voice that never answered back. Sometimes, in the right light, it seemed the petals held a glint of something new, a button, a ribbon, a single golden curl of hair. Helena walked the garden alone now. She never locked the gate, never called out. Sometimes, when the northern lights flickered, people saw her kneeling beside the fountain, whispering to the ice, her hands full of frost-tipped blooms. Why did the flowers never die? Why did the children's laughter linger in the air, sweet and sad, trapped between the petals? Was the garden a gift, a curse, or something stranger? A trap waiting for anyone too hopeful, too curious, too willing to believe in beauty beneath the snow? Would you cross that threshold knowing what's been lost, hoping you'd be new to make it back? Would you pick a single flower or run before the gate swings closed behind you? If Sister Helena's crystal garden caught you in its spell, tell us what you think waits among the petals and subscribe before the next laughter freezes forever. Out beyond the garden, across the frozen field, the bell tower stands alone. Stone blocks stacked higher than any tree, chipped by wind, dusted with ice, blackened at the edges by time. It rises out of the earth like something the mountain tried to bury, but couldn't. No one remembers who built it. No one remembers a time when it wasn't there. Every villager, every sister, every wandering stranger knows its shape. The empty arch at the top, wide enough for the moon to shine through. No rope, no bell, just a hollow place that seems hungry for something lost. Some nights the wind screams around the tower, making old stones moan, but the field stays empty. You might stand there for hours and hear nothing but your own breath fogging the air, freezing on your lips. But then, when the clock slips past midnight, a strange hush falls. Cold seeps into your bones, so deep it feels like your heart might stop. You look at your watch. 1:10, 1 minute left. Everyone in the village feels it. Lights flicker in windows. Dogs curl tighter, refusing to bark. Even the horses refuse to lift their heads. At exactly 1:11 a.m. it happens. A single toll cracks through the dark, sharp and low, the sound of iron splitting ice. The ground trembles. Your ears ring. The echo rolls out over the field across the convent, all the way to the edge of the frozen sea. It doesn't matter where you are. You feel it in your teeth, your ribs, your dreams. But when you look up, nothing moves in the tower. The arch remains empty. No bell, no rope, just a slice of moonlight and a shiver that won't fade.